what if my experience of this life isn't the only experience that is available?
So if let's just say somebody is repeating patterns, what would be three things to clear that trauma that you've kind of dove into or researched or found that would help you be more of a match to what you're truly desiring?
I think starting from a place of saying what's going on here that I don't like, just start very simple. What do there's a famous line from a race car driver, Mario Andretti, where he said, if you want to know how to drive a race car, one tip is don't look at the wall, because your eyes go where, or your car goes where the eyes go.
Yeah.
So that became a very deep idea for me. What's the wall that I'm focused on that I just keep crashing into over and over again? And I think there were several of them. We all have our wall.
We do.
And that wall is often constructed by the things we've been through in our life, the trauma. I write a story in the book about how, my growing up had me become sort of hyper vigilant about threats and things that could go wrong, and that translated into me being sort of overprotective and over scanning for threats when I would go out at night. And I was with my brothers in a bar in Japan, and
Oh yeah.
a person kept staring at my brother, who was very sort of, just having a good time, not paying attention, and I perceived this threat that this person was going to go and hurt my brother, and so I ended up confronting him and creating a problem. Where
That's so good. That's a good
may not have
representation.
ever even been a problem.
Yeah.
And it it was a proud moment for me. And my brother came up to me and was like, what are you doing? Like, because it was literally like I was precipitating. What I want is peace, but what I was precipitating was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And everyone can relate to that, this idea
Yeah.
that what I want more than anything is love, and I keep pushing love away and creating the opposite. I had a woman who I coached who had a guy she was dating that she was having a great time with, and she, by all accounts, he was great. He wasn't doing anything wrong. And then one day he got a gathering of his friends together, and he didn't invite her, and it really affected her. It brought up a lot for her in terms of abandonment and story
Not
around
being included.
not being included, not liking him more than he liked her.
Yeah.
Him being embarrassed of her somehow and not wanting to introduce her to his friends, and she really, her nervous system was like fully activated by this whole situation. And while he was having this nice time with his friends, she texted him and said, why didn't you invite me? And he said, well, I'm so sorry, I haven't seen these friends in a while. I was excited to see them. I was just getting this group together. Can I call you later? And she said, don't bother. And he didn't, and 4 days later she was speaking to me saying, I don't know what to do. Feel this really sucks. I like this guy, but now he's not texting me. And when you look at that situation, this is someone who has a real fear of abandonment.
Totally.
And when she gets afraid, and she got triggered when he didn't invite her, the walls go up.
Yeah. And she pushed him away.
She said, don't bother calling me. Immediately confrontational. And there's a part of her that has obviously been struggling with that for a very long time. And the feelings she has around that are very real. It's not that the feelings are real, and they relate to a real time in her life.
Totally.
But they don't necessarily relate to what's happening in front of her now. They might, by the way. It's possible her intuition is picking up on something from him that is, possible, call it a red flag. But we don't know that right now. And the problem is, instead of exploring what the situation was, she saw the wall.
Yeah.
And just crashed straight into that wall. And unfortunately, what she wants is everything. She doesn't want the wall. What she wants is love, connection,
Totally.
belonging, vulnerability, to be able to be herself. But what she got was, not being herself, going to confrontation, not pain, which is what she was really feeling, pushing someone away, becoming completely guarded and not vulnerable, and then abandonment from the guy. So it's fascinating to me
Yeah.
that we do these things. And the first step for her is, firstly, ultimate compassion, ultimate self-compassion.
So that was the first step, ultimate self-compassion.
Yeah, because you didn't volunteer for these feelings. You didn't volunteer for this nervous system. Something happened in your life.
Yeah, totally.
And your nervous system got wired a certain way before you were ever making decisions about how things got wired.
Yeah.
And it wired that way for survival and as a reflex response to whatever was going on around you. And that wiring is now still in existence in a time in your life where it is no longer serving you. But when you feel those feelings, it's not like you went to the buffet of feelings and went, you know what I want to feel? Abandonment,
No.
Fear, anxiety, not feeling good enough. No, if that was a light switch and you could just turn it off, everyone would turn it off. But she can't just turn it off because it's wired into her body. So he had a gathering, she wasn't invited. Everything in her body said danger.
Yep.
So ultimate self-compassion. The second thing is recognition that this is a pattern that's been in existence my whole life. And by the way, sometimes my hypervigilance in these situations was right.
Yep. Protected me. And I probably was proven right.
Right.
Yep.
And other times it wasn't. And so it's not that I'm never right. It's that always seeing the wall keeps leading me reliably into a certain experience in my life.
Yeah.
And that if I want a different experience, then I might have to change the pattern here. The trigger might continue to exist for a while, but I might be able to start to change the pattern that follows that trigger. So I think a really big step here is curiosity. They feel inadequate when they're just trying to believe something,
Yeah.
and it's like, but I still can't do it because I still feel danger and I still feel...
Yeah.
So it makes them feel defeated. Instead of trying to just adopt a new belief, adopt an attitude of curiosity. And curiosity says, what if my experience of this life isn't the only experience that is available? And what if there is proof of that around me? What if there are people in my life that seem to experience life differently? What's going on there? Why is it that someone else is having a more positive experience of relationships? Why is it that my friend can be more vulnerable than me and be more loving outwardly and be more compassionate or at least view things with a more kind of open lens, and it doesn't result in her getting steamrolled by life all the time? Actually, the opposite. She seems to attract a different energy into her life as a result of that. That curiosity about that is very powerful.
Yeah. I can see that.
You can...
You're asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, like just... It's almost like you're messing... Instead of trying to change your belief, you're just messing with your belief a little bit.
Yeah.
You're just going, what? Is this always true? And is everyone else having this experience? And if they're not, and they're getting results that I think I would like to have, how do they think about this differently? What do they do differently? Where do they go right when I go left?
Yeah.
And asking those questions of people. And this is where, again, self-compassion comes in. You have to recognize that when you're asking those questions of someone else, especially if they're more natural or have reached a different point than you in this area, that you are a toddler in that area. And it's not that you're a toddler because you're an idiot. It's not you're a toddler because you're broken or because it's because of your life.
Exactly.
And your life has made you an athlete in certain areas and it's made you a toddler, unable to walk in others, or
Totally.
one who hasn't learned to walk yet in others. And what I like to do in my life is just recognize where I'm a toddler and go, okay, my life has not equipped me to naturally be good at this thing. If it's trusting people, my life has not made it easy for me in that department. So I'm a bit of a toddler when it comes to trusting people. And let me find people who trust and who maybe are athletes in that department or have learned to be, and ask them how they think about this. You know, when a guy does this, what do you do? Like when you get a little, do you get scared when someone doesn't do this and they go, and you hear them speak and they go, well, I guess, you know, I don't really know yet. You know, I guess if he kept doing it, then maybe I would. And then you go, oh, that's where you went right and I went left.
Totally.
Because you said if he kept doing it, and I went,
you did it
he
one
even
time.
did a hint of that thing, the walls go up. So you go, that's interesting. But what? And then you might ask a follow-up question. But what if then you kept giving and it turned out he was really screwing you around? And they go, well, yeah, it would suck and I'd be disappointed, but I would just stop giving energy to that person after I knew.
Yeah.
You go, oh, I would hold on to that and I would tell myself that I'm never going to be vulnerable again. And I would tell myself that men are horrible, or I would tell myself, like,
right.
You know, every crossroads where you go left, you see where that person takes a different turn.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful to sit with someone and do that, because it starts to model a different way of being.
That's so true.
And when you have a different way of being, you may not be able to do it to the extent that that person is, because you're working with different triggers. But if you could take 10% or 20%, and for her, maybe if it turns it into, when he says, can I call you later? She says, I'd like that. And there's just a bit more vulnerability in that.
Yeah.
And then when he does call her, she says, oh, so I got it in my head today. And she's just, instead of trying to be okay, she's not, doesn't pretend to be okay, but instead of saying, don't call me, she has a conversation and she says,
Gets curious with him.
Yeah, I got in my head today about something.
And then
they have a conversation, just a vulnerable conversation. And maybe he says, oh, you know what, honestly, this is all too much for me. If you're going to get insecure about this, I don't even want to know. Like, maybe
that's
he does
fine.
that.
Great.
But then it's like, okay, this is someone who doesn't really see me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't bring this to them in a negative way.
Yeah.
And if they can't see this side of me, then this can't be my person, because albeit that I want to bring my good energy, this person, I'm bringing vulnerability to this person with good energy, and all they're doing is shaming me for who I am and for the things that I struggle with. Right. So, not my person. By the way, doesn't make them wrong necessarily, but it does make them wrong for you.
Exactly.
Because the right person is the person who knows how to, who is willing to learn how to handle you.
Exactly.
And the maybe he doesn't do that. Maybe he says, oh, well, honestly, it was like this and but I'm glad you shared that with me. And you go, oh my God, it didn't, that went okay. And actually even more so, it brought us a little closer together. We understand each other more. And my vulnerability about this actually communicated a little intentionality.
Yeah.
Because instead of doing what I've done in the past, which is play cool and indifferent at every turn until I erupt, instead now I actually communicated. You can't communicate that without communicating that you like someone.
Yeah.
So what I've really done, albeit through the lens of something got in my head today, is communicated that I like you.
Yeah.
And maybe that becomes a lovely thing. Maybe that person now realizes, oh, this person likes me more than I realized.
Yeah.
And that becomes that intentionality becomes a stepping stone to more intimacy with that person and more intentionality on their part. Okay. The point isn't that every time you deviate through the lens of curiosity and do something different that you're going to get the exact result you want. The point is that you're going to get a different result. And I have this fundamental belief that different is better. Different is good. Because if different happens, even if it's different in a way that blows up in your face, it says there's a other reality than the one I've been living in.
Right.
Where different things happen. And if any reality where different things happen is possible, then that kind of, I find that to be a mind-blowing concept, because what it tells me is, oh my God, I've been living, I thought I was living in the world, but what I've really done at 36 years old is I've spent 36 years living in my world.
Right.
And there are so many different worlds that I could exist in by even deviating by 1% from my normal programming. The whole world of possibility opens up. And that is how people can start. That's why I say to people, the past doesn't equal the future in your love life. Because whatever you've experienced in the past has not been a reflection of your capabilities. It's not been a reflection of how lovable you are. It's not been a reflection of what's possible for you. It's only ever been a reflection of the world that you have been living in so far.
Wow.